Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know what it is where you're listening. It's about 2 p.m. here. Lovely day outside. Is it sunny where you are, bud?
Earthquakes were shaking us.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I was getting a coffee this morning and I just a little bit of this. I was like, huh, that was weird. And then I heard all of the alerts going off around me.
Yeah, my house was shaking. My house was shaking. Mina was freaking out, and I was caught on the toilet.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What do I do? Come help!" I'm like, "I can't really right now." I'm like, just stand under a doorway.
Has she experienced an earthquake before?
No, and that's like the first one I felt in a long time, man, like decades.
Yeah, I mean, we had a pretty bad one out here when I moved here in like 2009 or so. Like I remember I was playing like Call of Duty at the time, and it like just felt like I didn't notice it because I was, in the midst of a battle and everything. And then like I started noticing everything was shaking quite a bit. I'm moving back and forth. Then my TV just fell completely over, and I was like, "Holy shit, am I going to die?"
Yeah, thankfully nothing fell here.
That was the first time I ever experienced that.
It wasn't that bad, but it was kind of crazy, man.
Yeah. Well, on a related note, there's some tremors going through the markets, if you will.
Yeah, no doubt.
We had a interesting week last week. Had a mega pump on Wednesday, followed by a mega dump, and then Friday afternoon, sitting in the Discord, I was trading the markets and talked about how it was starting to feel like there was like some sort of fix in. Things were looking like a little bullish, and then sure enough, got some announcements. We had some exemptions go through over the weekend on some select electronic stuff. I think somebody unloaded on Apple calls I saw like right before the close on Friday.
Surprise.
So crime is abundant.
Yeah, Tim Apple seemingly doing a great job negotiating that little deal.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of anything right now. I'm trying to kind of stay in this mode where I'm simultaneously like very zoomed out and very zoomed in, and I feel like diddling in the middle for your time frame is just like a recipe for disaster at the moment. Like I simply don't know what is going to happen over a month, right? It's just one of the most unpredictable times.
Does this volatility does this volatility set the stage for like great trading opportunities for you, or is this like making it much harder to do what you do?
No, it is a great environment to be trading, but it's also stressful in a way because the volatility isn't aligned around like predictable scheduled economic events, but instead is being just injected to the market at random at all hours of the day via tweet. So it creates this like horrific environment where you have to kind of stay glued to your computer and glued to these like news feeds to just see what's happening. Like the Trump tweet on Wednesday, I think it was kind of incredible because it was sort of like a psych kind of tweet. Like the beginning of the tweet was sort of like, I'm increasing tariffs on China, to X percent. But if you read through the whole tweet at the end, there was like a bullish thing tucked there in the end. So, people got whipsawed by that super hard. It's just nasty right now, man. But like, as far as my generalized thoughts, my generalized strategy right now, I hold mainly 3 assets. I mainly hold Bitcoin, I mainly hold gold, and I mainly hold cash via, mostly 1 to 3 year bonds.
I thought you were going to say Fartcoin. I was certain you were going to say Fartcoin.
I've been looking for another entry on Fartcoin. Fartcoin's still one of the strongest assets on planet Earth, but
it's incredible.
Not any good spots for me right now. But yeah, it is a sight to behold. But yeah, I mean, one of my main things over the last week has been like, do I want to own stocks? And although I did nibble on some stocks during that dip, I ended up shedding the position that I bought because I just think stocks are going lower, man. I am just kind of assuming at this point that I'm going to be shorting on maybe Tuesday or Wednesday this week, 55, 56 level, something around there. Looks pretty interesting to me. I don't know if you've been following the trailing or the forward PE ratios on the S&P, but I think we're somewhere in the 26 neighborhood right now, which just seems kind of ridiculous given the current environment. And it just seems likely that's going to go to 14, 15, 16, something like that. And probably puts us at around 41, 4,200 which is a pretty sizable move down from here. So I just don't see the upside right now.
What scares me too is that in the PE ratio, that denominator, the E, can also like fall out from under you too. Like corporate earnings could disappoint if we get like a real recession, which seems more and more likely, maybe inevitable.
Yeah, and we were talking last week a lot about how this is sort of more of like it's like a game theory market more so than it is like a fundamentals analysis market, which is like good for me, I think, because I'm not really a fundamentals guy. And I do think in terms of game theory, you know, as a former professional poker player. And we talked a little bit last week about how in this sort of like chaotic world where it seems like there's all this like crazy shit happening and it's impossible to kind of get a grip on what this administration is doing and why, like what their end goals are. One of the easiest things to do was to focus on sort of like the constraints of the game in which we're operating in. And we talked about how time is a big constraint of the game because time is eventually going to bring us towards the midterms in the United States next year. And if the Republicans lose those midterms, then any sort of Trump agenda is basically dead in the water, I think. And even if he does do things unilaterally via the executive branch, I mean, any Democrat's going to be able to come in the next term and just like completely unwind everything, like if it's not done legislatively. So if you assume these guys are doing something, you know, with some sort of intent, they have like a vision that they're trying to enact, then that vision does have to be enacted like very soon.
Very soon.
Very kind of move fast, break things. And I see a lot of people everywhere, right? Not just Twitter, but on the news and my personal life. And obviously everybody's a tariff expert now. And everybody's obviously viewing tariffs like through the lens of economics, which kind of makes sense, right? It is very much an economics thing. And if you view tariffs in like this purely economic sense, like it's very hard to draw any conclusions other than everything that's happening right now is like very negative for every economy, like not just the US economy, but all of our allies, China, right? Just the tariffs and the general breakdown of free trade, you know, if you are a student of economics, is just universally, I think, heralded as like as sort of like a bad bearish thing. Everybody's making comparisons to Smoot-Hawley in the early 1900s and the disaster that follows there, right? So then you sort of have to think about what the administration is doing and like sort of you have to pick one of two lanes. Like lane one is that they're doing this, it's bad economically and they know it's bad economically, so they must be really, really stupid. Or lane two, they're doing this, it's so obvious that it's bad economically to even people with like a rote understanding of economics, right? So of course they know this. So then your choices are that they're just sadistic or that there's like some kind of greater plan going on. Like there's something beyond pure economics. And you know, I've been of the mindset for a long time that Trump is not an idiot, right? Like this idea that this man just luck boxed his way into the most powerful position in the entire world at a time where maybe that position has had more influence than it ever has, right? You talk about one of the most powerful people in history and he just did it like accidentally in spite of being like a moron. Like I don't buy that. So I choose to believe that there's some greater purpose or intent there, right? And there's some meaning behind what's happening. And then we start thinking about, okay, well, why would they be doing this in the way that they're doing this? Like, how does this play out from sort of like a game theory perspective? It becomes like more of like a giant poker game as opposed to an economic analysis. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. And I'm wondering, like, you know, if you like are playing this game of poker, who are we playing against? And like, what's our hand and what are we trying to do? What seems to make sense to me is like we're trying to play against China. And that's the only thing that makes sense to me. It's like all of these little moves are kind of like indicating that we're in economic war with China and that we are trying to rally all of our allies to also fight this same war.
Have you watched Game of Thrones?
Yeah, loved it.
You familiar with that amazing Littlefinger quote? Chaos isn't a pit.
It's a
Chaos is a ladder.
yeah.
And I think that quote is very applicable to the current paradigm we find ourselves in. And there's sort of like a dual purpose to that, right? On the one hand, I think that this sort of chaos as a ladder mindset is very much what the current admin is doing. They are, I think, intentionally sowing seeds of chaos to sort of like ascend some sort of ladder, right? And to achieve a better outcome. And I also think as an investor right now, chaos is a financial ladder, right? You have the ability, I think, to ascend financially via the current chaotic state of the world. And you mentioned this being about China, and I think that's absolutely correct, right? Like there's a school of thought that this is all about like bringing jobs back home and everything, and that doesn't make sense to me because given the constraints you have, like you can't bring jobs home in a year. You can't like reshore, you can't build all this stuff, right? But what can you accomplish in a year? Well, I think you could forcibly realign like all of the world trade that currently happens like away from China and towards, if not like the US, like the US sphere of influence. Maybe that's why, we talked about how these, like South America in particular was just entirely 10%, right? Just sitting there right underneath us. And that, we could be using all of this like economic pain to basically coerce all of our allies into sort of like aligning away from China, and towards the US. And I think this is especially interesting when you consider what's been happening with the Yuan, right? And for those people who don't know, I mean, the Chinese government has basically like manipulated the Yuan for like a very, very long time. And China walks this kind of delicate balance where they want the currency to sort of be artificially weak because it makes the demand for their goods greater. Like if the Chinese yuan is weak and the dollar is strong, then if you're in the US, you demand a lot of Chinese goods because they're so comparatively like inexpensive to make. And if your currency gets strong, you have to start paying like more money comparatively for those goods, then it, can have like this sort of downward effect on exports, right? Are you familiar with like the famous George Soros trade with the Bank of England?
Didn't he shorted the pound? Is that what he did?
Shorted the pound, right? Basically bet on the peg breaking. And I don't know if you're familiar, but like Scott Bessent or Bessent or however you say this guy's freaking name. I'm just going to keep calling him Bessent.
Yeah, I like
Stop agonizing over this. Scott Bessent was working for Soros
at that time. Okay.
And the current situation, like it makes me wonder, like, is this a play to break the yuan? Like, a lot of people are kind of thinking that the yuan the Chinese, they want the yuan to go down. They're manipulating it down now, and this is bad for us. But there's an extent where the yuan falling off a cliff becomes like incredibly destabilizing for China, because if the yuan gets like too low, like this sort of sequence starts happening, right? And the sequence kind of goes like this, right? Let's start at the beginning. We tariff China. Tariffing China reduces demand for Chinese exports, right? Easy enough to follow. The exports are more expensive, right? This in turn lowers the inflow of dollars into China, right? Meaning that there is now downward pressure on the yuan.
Yep.
Right? Because China doesn't have these dollars to turn around and like recycle and do sorts of various things to sort of like manipulate their currency, right? So the yuan starts getting devalued. If your currency gets devalued too much, you start seeing capital flight.
Right, because I guess if you're investing in local currency and the currency is depreciating, then that's like a negative investment return.
And then you start seeing rising defaults, real estate and such. And then we have to understand too, like the Chinese economy is already like shaky, right? They're already in kind of like a maybe deflationary scenario right now.
Right. I've seen like a real estate bubble that's on the verge of bursting like every year.
So you can imagine this like kind of scenario taking place where you start having capital flight, the currency is going down, the economy starts deteriorating even more because there's less income coming in, from these manufacturers, defaults rise. And then the Chinese government has to start like stimulating to sort of like paper over some of this disaster, right? But in doing so, you sort of set off this like reflexive cycle where like the more you stimulate, like the more downward pressure you put on the
deflate even
currency,
more.
and then the more like capital wants to flee, right? And then eventually this like yuan depreciation becomes disorderly, right? And then you get this sort of, maybe situation that we had with the pound investment in the 90s, where this thing sort of ultimately deteriorates. And of course, the end game to this is like social tensions and disaster for the CCP.
That's interesting because, what you're saying, I like it. I like what you're saying. I'm noticing a couple things here. Like one, it's like China wants to keep their currency artificially low so that their exports are competitive. But if it gets too low, then they get a whole new set of problems. And these problems could be disastrous, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And as far as like what the trade is here, the trade right now is to long Bitcoin, because anytime you have capital restrictions becoming like a phenomenon, if that starts spreading throughout all of Asia, like some sort of contagion,
yeah,
where does capital wants to flow to escape like a system?
Right.
Probably
And
wants to flow to Bitcoin.
in addition, like what you said, if China has to basically print money to get themselves out of the problem, then that also helps Bitcoin price.
And then I think investors like outside of the country start using Bitcoin as like a hedge. You have multiple ways to win with the Bitcoin trade, because not only are you winning from like actual capital flight into the asset, but Bitcoin has also become this sort of like barometer for policymaker panic, a barometer for future liquidity injections. Like the market kind of knows the game right now. And I think that's why it's like an interesting time to be investing in Bitcoin, because on the one hand, we used to think, well, let's just buy it when there's a disaster, and then everything's down, and we buy Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin goes up because they inject liquidity or they reenact QE or whatever they do, right? And then we all live happily ever after. But the game can't be like that easy all the time, right? Like everybody kind of knows that's the playbook, which is one of the main reasons why I deployed so heavily last week, is because I think there is a decent scenario where like the bottom is in fact in. And like I can even see a scenario where we rip to like 120K from here, and then there's like a disaster and Bitcoin melts down, but it only melts down to like 80, 85K or something, and then you're still in at the bottom.
Okay, so I like this. I mean, where my mind went is that there's a few trades you could do. One is Bitcoin, and that seems to like be the easiest one. There's like shorting the yuan, which is something that you talked about offline. I think there's a third one, which is like investing in areas that might benefit if Chinese manufacturing like loses its stronghold. So maybe like South America or Central America, something like that. I think those are also interesting, but Bitcoin seems like the easiest one, because also you have like just math working on your side. Like Bitcoin's going up anyways over the long term. You don't have to like overthink it too much.
Yeah, I mean, look, whenever you're investing too, you have this kind of conundrum of like, well, what is like the actual thesis, and how do I directly invest in that thesis versus like, oh, I'm investing in these sort of proxies to the thesis. So then the more you're like a proxy to the actual thesis, the more like these other confounding variables can get in the way, and like something that you thought was going to happen doesn't end up happening because you invested in the proxy instead of the exact thesis, right? But like right now, I think that the trade actually is like the main trade happening in the world right now is like a yuan pressure trade. And if you look at this chart, I mean, it's pretty obvious, I think, what this chart wants to do. I mean, this is like your classic little ascending triangle here, and I think this pops. And this is the dollar versus the yuan, right? So when this chart is going up, the yuan is going down.
Yeah.
Right. The most direct and interesting way to play this, if you can, is probably to sort of short the yuan and then immediately buy Bitcoin. Like that becomes like a really, really interesting trade. You get a scenario where the yuan like just snap devalues like 20 or 30%. And then all the Bitcoin you buy in US dollars is like immediately relatively worth like 20 or 30% more to you. And then on top of that, if Bitcoin sort of becomes this like release valve for all this stuff, the US dollar price of Bitcoin goes up, and now you're really juicing this trade and
you're hitting it from
hard.
both sides. I like that. In terms of vehicles, like ways to trade this, I mean, we were just looking on Interactive Brokers, which allows you to trade Forex. And I like trade currencies on interactive brokers quite often, but not the Yuan. So I don't even know if you can do it. But there's probably some like ETFs where you can express this short Yuan trade.
Yeah, there are no ETFs I know of to do that. I mean, this is sort of like an idea I just kind of cooked up like, 30 minutes before we started recording. So I would like to see if there's a way to put this on, but the simplified way to put this on is still to just long Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I was thinking about like buying Bitcoin here. What are we at? Like 83K or something? 84.5. So like I think on the last time we got together, that was a week ago, you were talking about sort of investing in maybe like 3 different tranches in terms of your timing. Like that's your DCA strategy essentially. And I've been pretty reluctant to buy stocks here, even though like I see some like compelling valuations on the mag 4 or something, but I'm still reluctant to sort of plow in to stocks even in the first tranche. But with Bitcoin, it seems like a reasonable time. I guess I'm looking forward to some of your chart analysis on Bitcoin to see if this is a reasonable time.
I mean, I think it is a reasonable time. I think we've looked at sort of like the 3-month chart before. It's a very simplified way of looking at Bitcoin. You don't have a lot of candles. It's obviously a bullish chart. And this quarter recently, we had this sort of sweep of last quarter's low, trade back inside the quarterly range. And typically, when you have these moves up and you leave these gaps, these imbalances, price likes to retest these gaps and it likes to attempt to make another high, at least attempt to make one, right? Mm-hmm. So if nothing else, you typically get like a good long opportunity in these situations, not necessarily to new highs, but to some supply near that high at least. And if you kind of, pull up the lower time frame on Bitcoin, I mean, there is just a great deal of high time frame supply that has not been tapped into at all. I mean, this entire leg up here is sort of like your last point of supply for this like very high time frame distribution here. And it's just mega probable to me that you get along like maybe up into like 100K.
Yeah.
Like the way I currently have this thought out and what I've been kind of explaining to the guys in the Discord and this week's Magic Lines newsletter is that, the easy trade for me is to these equal highs here, like 88.8K or something, 89K, call it. I think that's where we're going. Where are we going there from? I'm kind of betting on us retesting February's low right now. So that's at about like 78K, call it. So there's going to be probably some exogenous news shock at some point, right? Maybe we sweep those highs and that causes like a sell-off, right? And then this is very scary. Obviously, price is dumping down here. But to me, this whole area here is it's like a giant demand zone. And I think anything that we buy in here, like probably ages pretty well, but like I'm hoping we run like these kind of lows we put in last week before the pump. These lows here around like 78.4 or so. Interesting level because it front ran the February low, it front ran the weekly open here, so there's like, and it front ran, like if you zoom in to the little pump we had on Wednesday, right? This is the little demand that caused the pump. And you can see that this area hasn't been tagged. So I just see a lot of technical reasons for us to kind of trade back in here. And I don't know if you can see it clearly, but you see the weekly open.
Yep.
So last week's open, this yellow line is your February low. You get all this confluence, right? And then you could also get some further confluence with just like a basic little, fib level. Cause there's your 0.618.
There it is.
There's your golden pocket. So all of this area here is like pretty magical to me. So I'm bidding in here, TLDR, and yeah. I think it's probably a good play if people bid here. And I think if you don't have spot Bitcoin, and you've been like waiting for an opportunity to buy spot Bitcoin, like I think you have to deploy honestly like most of your spot capital for Bitcoin here. Like maybe you can leave yourself a 20-30% cash reserve or something. There is a good chance we go lower.
So that would be
still.
like your second tranche of deployment, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have too much more spot to deploy. And I still am open to the idea that, we come up here and like kind of double top it and then come back down, retest this all-time high level. I'm open to that idea, but it's like far down the road right now. Like as far as I can tell right now, like the path of least resistance for the next leg is probably up. And I think price wants to go back into this zone that caused the sell-off from earlier this year. It probably wants to attempt to put in another all-time high. But at the latest, like I think it does, at the very least, I think it wants to go to these 89K highs, especially because that's basically, this is like February's range right here. So this is your February mid-range, about 90K. So, February low, sweep the low, sweep it. Like all this failure to close outside of February's range makes sense to go to the mid-range. So yeah, like target number one for me is these 89K highs en route to 90K or so. But I'm open to the idea that we go to all-time highs like as well. I think there's too many like unanswered questions about like what Trump is going to tweet in the next few weeks for me to know this for certain, so I'm just kind of focused on the next target. But if you're able to buy 78 and take that trade to 89, that's a nice move, even if that ends up being all.
So you got me pretty convinced here, but like, here's the thing. I know I'm less of a trader. I'm like not a trader when it comes to Bitcoin, especially. I'm just like a hodler. So what has me a little more cautious is like, I don't think I would sell that 89K level like you're talking about. I don't think I would sell the 100K level. So then I'm really asking myself, like, when do I really want to enter sort of like my forever spot bag? And what has me really concerned is like, if we go into a real recession and like the stock market actually pukes, what I've seen time and time again is that like risk assets tend to be very correlated, particularly when assets are moving down. And I could see Bitcoin just getting nuked regardless of what's going on in macro.
Yeah, I mean, people say that. Also, it's had every opportunity in the world to nuke and hasn't. I think the other thing Bitcoin has going for it is gold. Like one of the interesting things about Bitcoin is that gold tends to lead movements of Bitcoin. And you'll frequently see periods like this, right? Where gold right here was mooning, Bitcoin's initially going down, but then gold starts to level off and then Bitcoin catches up, right? So I think there's a good chance that that's what's happening here. Gold is mooning, Bitcoin's trending down, but I think in the very near future, gold starts topping and then Bitcoin starts catching up.
Yeah, that would make sense too. It should be pretty correlated. Digital gold should be correlated to gold.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, like I think part of Bitcoin's value prop is digital gold. I think it has other value props, most of which, like, I don't think the market is fully digested, and that's sort of like an ongoing process. But I mean, Bitcoin is nice because it gives you multiple ways to win. Like, I think if you buy equities here, you're betting on like a very specific parlay, right? You need all of these things to sort of pan out. You obviously need capital to stop flowing out of the stock market. You need like a resolution to this like trade war, and you need earnings to sort of not fall off a cliff. And then you're still buying at historically like pretty high valuations, right? It just doesn't look that attractive versus like Bitcoin is sort of like you're just betting on global chaos. You're betting on a global monetary reset. You're betting on, capital controls. Like there's all these things that can happen that juice the price of Bitcoin. And a lot of the same scenarios that make stocks go up also make Bitcoin go up. And then there's a lot of scenarios that make stocks go down, but Bitcoin still goes up. It's just a better thing to own right now for me.
I think so too. Yeah, I agree.
Glad you agree. So yeah, I guess the TLDR for the people in the audience is that the trade this week is probably short equities, long Bitcoin. Ideally, shorting equities, kind of closer to 55, 56. I do feel like that's probably the top. I'm definitely in the sell the rip camp, and I'm definitely like looking very intently at this kind of like 4100 area. And this is an interesting area because it's an interesting technical level. It's untapped demand. It's it's a key fib level. If you kind of draw your fibs out, there's your golden pocket right there. You've also got the PE multiples we talked about, right? This is probably about a 14. I don't know, somewhere in here is like 14 to 16, which seems like a very reasonable reset level.
That would be really juicy because we haven't seen a multiple that low in a long time.
Yeah, and if we get there, I'm going all in. One trade that is like I'll throw one more thing out there for people because this trade is sort of like a hybrid of these two trades. It's like sort of like a hybrid stocks Bitcoin trade, and that's Bitcoin miners. And so this is a trade I gave out a few weeks ago in Magic Lines, and it's done pretty well so far. But Mara is a very interesting stock for me.
What's Mara at these days?
Mara's trading $13
Okay.
right now. But we had identified this level here, 1060, as a good buy zone. Been waiting on this for a while. I think there's a good chance that we see Mara $60.
That is awesome. That's a bold call.
Yeah, I just it's a convexity trade for me for sure, and I took it via options because options, convexity, good.
It's the best way to play the miners because they just have these moments of explosion.
Yeah,
you can like get exposure with very little upfront capital.
And I basically financed the trade by selling a spread below this zone because I don't think we should go below here.
Yep, that's my style, baby. I love that.
If we do, I lose obviously, but it's a capped loss. It's not a infinite. But I was able to basically put on this trade for no upfront cost. Like this is basically like kind of like a net zero trade at the outset.
Yeah, you get the free upside, man. It's hard to beat that.
Yeah, it's sort of free.
Yeah, with some risk.
Free initially, might cost you in the future, but yeah, it is interesting to put on a trade with like no capital that can give you like a pretty nice payoff profile. This is, I think, probably like 6-1 from like the risk I structured on it. Like if this thing goes all the way, so it's pretty appealing. But even if you just structure this as like just a simple stock long with a stop below 7, I mean, this is it's an 8-1. It's an 8-1 trade even from here.
I think it was like common stock. Wow.
Yeah, this was a
damn.
I mean, this is really juicy when we took it. When we took it, it was a 13-1 risk reward.
So for Mara to hit $60, we would need Bitcoin at all-time highs.
Yeah, Bitcoin has to go up, obviously. Like there's no scenario where Bitcoin starts breaking down and Mara does good.
Yeah.
Definitely not. So don't think that'll be the outcome. But in a portfolio I have that is very largely oriented around doom, I think it's good to have these optimistic bets there as well. And I took a pretty long duration on this. I mean, I did this with leaps, so have pretty long time for everything.
Yeah, it gives you some time. I like
to play out because, like, I don't know, like there's sort of two scenarios where this does good. There's scenario A where there's some sort of Trump capitulation, and in the short run, everything turbo pumps. Right now, that in my mind is a pump for fading, but it's a pump nonetheless that will do pretty well. And I would expect to just take this trade off before it gets to these levels. But then there's the sort of longer term trade where a bunch of stuff ends up playing out. Chaos reigns, the stock market tanks, but Bitcoin ultimately holds, and you start seeing policymakers doing some sort of interventionist policies, capital flight from China, all these stars start aligning. And then like that's it. There's like the long term, like it's over capitulation move. Maybe Trump gets his way, he gets his desired policy, and then the liquidity starts pouring in. We juice the market, we start juicing the markets back up so that the Republicans can win their midterms, and then Bitcoin just starts turboing to 200K, 300K. Right? That's probably the more ideal scenario. But like I was saying, because there's this short-term potential that we just turbo up on a capitulation, I still want to have the trade on now, as opposed to like waiting for this entire thing to play. Because I don't know if I'm going to get this like obvious bottom to buy later on, which is again why Bitcoin is a good trade, because I don't think you have to pick the obvious.
I like that. I mean, it's a long shot for Mara specifically, but it's a cheap way to hit a grand slam.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic. All right, you wanted to talk about something. You put in a trade finally this week?
Yeah, well, I'm still kind of on my hiatus, I'm calling it. Maybe it's like paternity leave or something. But yeah, I'm still following the markets loosely. And the hottest stock currently is a recent IPO, Webull, ticker symbol BULL. And there it is. It was up 430% when I was looking at it earlier. I think the reason here is it's like you basically can't short this thing right now. It's because like it was a recent IPO. There's just like no shares available to borrow. You can't, if you can find the shares to borrow, you got to pay up for that. You got to pay a 200% fee rate to borrow the shares. That's like an annualized rate. So if you hold it just for a short period of time, you're not going to pay 200%. But like on a valuation perspective, this company, like for our folks who've been invested in Coinbase or Robinhood, like you can compare this directly to Robinhood. And this company is like a wish.com Robinhood, essentially. It's like got way fewer accounts. Its average account value is $3,000. It sells order flow just like how Robinhood does. And you really like can't generate much revenue off of like those small accounts, and that shows in their S1 financial statement that they generate like 1/10 of Robinhood's revenue, but after trading today, the enterprise value is like right with Robinhood's. They don't lose money for every dollar of revenue they generate. I mean, this thing sucks.
So there's similar market caps to Hood?
Yeah.
Oh wow. How do you have the trade long on? Are you just short shares?
I was able to just get a few shares borrowed. I mean, I'm paying 200% on them, but like my short entry was like 75. It's kind of climbing back up there. I don't know how long I want to hold this thing short, but I think at some point with these new issues, the shares become available, and that fee rate adjusts in real time. So it's not like I locked in a 200% fee rate, but you know, the stock price will naturally go down as shares become more readily available to borrow, and like the market does its thing where these things like kind of find their level. But this is like a no-brainer for me that this stock is going down, just a matter of time.
Yeah, but that's pretty brutal because you're basically eating 4% a week. And
the stock can go higher in the interim, like while there's no shorting available.
It's a ballsy move, not for the faint of heart. Do you like the naked short here versus shorting it versus Hood? Like long Hood, short?
Oh yeah, well I am long Hood, so that's like part of my rationale. Hood's a better company, and if it's trading the same valuation, I mean, I obviously want Hood.
I haven't looked at Hood in a while. Oh damn, this is a pretty good level for Hood. Had the chance to buy that gap there. Ugly candle last quarter. My God, this is a gross candle.
Ooh. Is that hanging man?
No, I wouldn't say that's a hanging man. I don't know what you would call this one. Not much of a candlestick pattern guy.
Okay.
I just go bad candle. I mean, you get a candle like this. This is emblematic of price opens and there's a huge move up and a massive rejection, which is generally not bullish. And if you pull up the daily chart, I mean that's very blow off toppy, but.
Like I don't really want to buy Hood here either, but if you don't want Hood here, then you definitely don't want Webull either.
I mean, I'm like still interested in owning Hood. I want to get back in. I'm trying to think where I would like to buy it. Like $20 would be really appealing if we get that.
Yeah, I agree.
If we get $20 there.
I think Hood's going to win the game that I previously attributed to Coinbase winning.
I haven't checked the Hood coin ratio in a while. Wonder how that's been doing. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting trade in and of itself. I mean, this is Hood versus coin. So long Hood, short coin. I mean, this looks like it's about to break out. So the market seems to think Hood is the play for sure. And kind of hard to disagree, honestly, with how Coinbase has been doing. Definitely looking to buy more Hood, not looking to buy more coin. Already greatly reduced my coin position a couple months ago. And yeah,
I think it's just much easier for Robinhood to allow people to trade cryptos than it is for Coinbase to like get approval to bring like stocks on chain. And, it's just, that seems like a way harder deal. So I think Hood is going to win in the interim.
Yeah. I'm going to have to agree with you. And then I'm also hopeful I finally get my level on NVIDIA.
What do you want? 80s?
Oh my God. How did I miss this? I had bids at this little dot, this mid range here.
Did you just
86.5?
Like
yeah. That's going to be one of those situations where it comes back and I'm going to be like, oh, I don't know if I want it now. But
what was that level that you wanted to buy?
85.5, I think is where I had the bids.
Yeah.
Yeah, 86.5. 0.5 to the tick, I think, is where my bids are. And then we hit 86.6. So 12 cents off. And then I missed an immediate ripper. It's an immediate 33% to the upside. So that's a feels bad, man, for you.
Would that be a long-term hold for you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was planning on just buy, hold NVIDIA. But now, now I got to wonder if we're going all the way back to $45. Like if my stock scenario plays out.
I mean, it totally could. I think people forget that they did that reverse split, or they did a regular split, like 10 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
Like $400 is still like really rich compared to where this thing was.
I feel very strongly that the bottom on this is not in. And if for some reason we start getting price trading up here to like 130 or something, I mean, this is just going to start looking like such a juicy head and shoulder mid-range of the move here at like 82. So I feel like you'd at least go back down to the mid-range, and then you're going to have your 200 week over here. So interesting short target from like one or so if you get it. I mean, it might be an interesting short from here. I don't have any plans on shorting it, but it is worth considering, actually. Like if you
shorting
should
the strongest company in history, that's pretty hard.
Yeah, I know. I just haven't loved shorting individual names all that much recently, and or shorting in general. Like even the short, like I'm, probably going to be getting into on stocks. It's just more of like a portfolio wide kind of hedge thing, as opposed to like, oh, I'm like leverage trading this in my account. Like I'm not really taking a bunch of shorts in my, especially on crypto right now, because it's just the headline risk to the upside is just so bad. It's just awful. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth considering a short here. I mean, this is a bearish zone. And when I look in here, I see you got a little weekly fair value gap. So very possible that was the top there today. I wonder.
Yeah, well, they got that tariff exclusion too, so that could have been like the.
Yeah, that could have been the exit pump. I feel like these things, all these news, they're all like, it's all sell the rip, sell the rip, sell the rip, sell the rip. Not bullish stonks. I'm gonna think about this one a little more. Maybe get back to you next week on it. But I think it's interesting. It's interesting for a downside play. But yeah, it just depends. Like if you're a guy who likes hanging on to short positions, it's kind of a painful business, shorting stocks.
Really scary, man.
Really, really painful. Not sure I would recommend that to anybody.
Yeah, I don't even like doing that.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we're gonna wrap up this week. Not a ton of crazy shit to do this week. I think sometimes just sitting on your hands is totally fine. I know there's a lot of pressure for us to come in here every week and just give you guys like a trade, give you guys a trade, give you guys a trade. There's not always like a really, really good trade. I think the good trades are zoomed out. I do like the Bitcoin trade zoomed out. I do like the levels that we gave you on Bitcoin today. Like if we get them this week, I think those are probably good levels to buy, and I'll almost certainly be buying those levels pending some disastrous like outcome that causes us to trade down into them, in which case maybe not. But like as of now, I think that's a good spot. I think equities look very unenticing and a little too soon for most altcoins, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like cash is a position, and it's like a cozy place to be for me.
Cash is a position, and it will allow you to climb the ladder of chaos towards financial freedom for the patient. It takes a while for this pain to play out sometimes. Like it's worth looking back at the 08 financial crisis, I think, because it was an interesting time to be alive. This is when I started my hedge fund career. Brutal. Way back in the day. Holy shit, I'm old. But yeah, I mean, we had a nasty sell-off, right? To kind of start this all, where the market tanked, solid 13%, right? And then we put in a new all-time high, and everybody thought it was chill, but then it was not chill.
Yeah.
It was very much not chill.
I saw some stat that like in 2008, in 2001, 2020, we had, in those three massive drawdowns, we had days like that massive up day we had last week. And it doesn't signify that we're back by any means. It's like,
it's a good point that people should understand, is that bear markets have like the biggest up days. Bear market rallies are they're pretty brutal to the upside.
And then the bottom's not in yet.
Yeah, the bottom is not in yet, because we just for a reminder, we traded 58% to the downside from top to bottom there after that 13% little mini nuke and the retrace. So something like that could happen here. It's very, very possible. What did we trade from the, I mean, this is 21%. So definitely a little bit more of a warning shot there this time around if we take a similar path. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the fractal I was worried about on Bitcoin. This kind of nuke trade back to all-time highs and then double top, right? The basically the 2021 fractal. This is definitely in play.
That's and scary.
It's scary, but it's, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. I think even if this plays out, like I think we just go to the 60s or, 50K worst case. So yeah, worst case scenario, if you buy 78, is that you trade up 40% and then you eat 20% drawdown under your entry or so. But if you could stomach that volatility, it's just par for the course for holding Bitcoin. This is what you got to deal with, man. Like you can't get your 1,000% gains without enduring some pain. And at a certain point in time, you have to click the buy button, and you have to be, willing to click the buy button lower and endure the drawdown and zoom out. And there's just not much else you could do unless you think you're a god and you can trade every wiggle, which you can't.
Right. Yeah. Well said.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll wrap it. Quick reminder to you guys, magiclines.xyz/IL, code long50. Get $50 for life off your Magic Line subscription. Got a great newsletter coming out today. Going to go finish that one and publish it. Get some good entries on Bitcoin, as well as some plans on Solana, Fartcoin, some individual stock plays.
It's the best asset on earth.
It's going to be a good one. Yes. The best asset on earth, unironically, Fartcoin, 15% today. Just trying not to think about the 6 figures of Fartcoin I bought here at 25 cents and then sold all the way up. Just pain. I knew this was going to happen. Oh well. Congrats to the fart enjoyers who are still in this position from the bottom. You deserve every dollar you make. Love you guys. All right, buddy. Good to chat with you. We'll see you guys same place, same time next week. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube. Hit the like button. Give us a follow on Twitter. Go to alfalfapod.com to check out not just our other podcast, but the Alfalfa Pod Discord, where we chat about the monies, about the life. We do it all for free. No charge. Come hang. It's a great crew. We'd love to have you.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother. All right, bud. Have a good day.